Hello, hi. Welcome back to our Kubernetes series. In this video, let us cover Kubernetes security overview. So, why exactly the Kubernetes security cannot be ignored? We'll be seeing a layered-wise security, primarily five security layers, and each and every detail in depth about each and every layer. Okay, and finally, we will be seeing some best practices with respect to the Kubernetes security and a quick recap and overview about this discussion. So without further, let's enter into the video and have a discussion. First thing, as I said, we are going to understand the security in Kubernetes. So it should be in just a layer wise. These are the five layers we are focusing on: authentication and authorization, basically RBAC, pod and container security, and then network and policy security, secrets and config protection, image and supply chain security, basically image scanning. So each and every layer security must be embedded. Okay, now let us deep dive into. Let's first understand why exactly the Kubernetes security is important and cannot be ignored. First thing was, Kubernetes will run say critical production environments or production systems like database, some payment APIs. Obviously, there will be a user data, and that can lead to a breach also. Okay, and some other or some malicious person will take entire the database. Okay, and there might be chances of multiple users will share a cluster resource. So especially the developer team, operations team, CI/CD pipelines, all will access the same cluster without a proper controls. Anyone can do anything. There should be a proper controls embedded, and one breach can compromise everything, especially a vulnerable container which was used in your work environment. Then obviously that vulnerable container will make use of malicious hacker and take care of your entire cluster. Okay, and there will be a chances of misconfigurations, uh, which was a top priority or a top risk. So most of the Kubernetes breaches happen due to wrong role-based access control, open ports, exposed databases, which was obviously uh, hackers go with the advances. Okay, take a advance of this, and security must be a built-in, not a bolted on. That means adding a security after deployment is obviously expensive and incomplete also, we can say. So source sorry, we need to secure each and every layer from the starting itself. So that means we need to achieve the shift left security approach. That means security must be considered at the design level itself, not after the production deployment. So every Kubernetes practitioner must have understood the security basics. So this is how the unsecured cluster looks like, and this is the secure cluster looks like. So there will be a chances of everyone can create and delete without proper role based access control, right? But here role or back will be controlling that. Container runs as root. Obviously, non-root user will be created. And secrets are visible to all. Here, secrets should be encrypted and also role-based access control is provided. All the pods talk to each other by default. Here, the network policies we need to enforce in such a way. Allow only respect to communication only. Okay. And no image scanning with respect to unsecure cluster. But in secure clusters, there should be a proper image scanning and verified, then only it will be moved to further deployment. Now let us see the security architecture overview. Like there are five areas of Kubernetes security primarily. First one was authentication and access. So here we are just controlling who can access the cluster and what they can do. Okay, here we are enforcing the role-based access control, service supports, kube config. Okay, it was under or in service account level, we can say. And the second area was pod security. So here we are going to restrict the container capabilities and run as non-root user, and applying the security context and pod security standards. So here pod security context is applied. And the third area was network security. Here we are going to control your pod-to-pod traffic communication, and we are going to block the unauthorized connections to enforce the least network access between the services. So here we are enforcing the network policies and TLS, SSL, everything. Okay, and then the next area was secrets and config map handling. So we need to store the sensitive data securely, and we never hard code use the Kubernetes secrets and encrypt the data at rest also in etcd, and this should be enforced in Kubernetes secrets and vault. These are basically what to use, okay, to enforce the security in this layer, okay. And another layer was image security. So that means we need to use a trusted and scanned images only, avoid the outdated base images, and verify the supply chain integrity also. So by using Trevi and cosign and key sign store, so these we can enforce the security here, okay. These are the like 5 main areas of Kubernetes security. Now let us deep dive into one by one. We will be seeing all 5 areas in depth, okay. So let's quickly cover all the 5 areas, okay, one by one. First thing was authentication and authorization. That means basically authentication means who are you. That means it is going to verify the identity. Here Kubernetes will check the certificate, tokens, or OIDC before allowing any user any request to perform. And then authorization. Once the authentication was done, authorization is something what you can do. So after identification is confirmed by the Kubernetes, then Kubernetes also checks if the user or that particular service account has a permission for what exactly action authorization. And then the RBAC also. So we are going to use a role-based access control. This is the standard Kubernetes authentication system, authorization basically, okay. And we are going to define your roles means what they can do, okay. And the role binding, that means who gets that particular role, that user. And then the service accounts for workloads also. So here bots will get their own identity via the service accounts, and those are used by the applications to call the Kubernetes API security. And also we should enforce the least privilege, which is a critical point. That means grant only the minimal permissions which was required. A compromised pod with admin rights, obviously that equals to the full cluster compromise. So the RBAC rule was very simple. That means never use the cluster admin for regular workloads. Create a specific roles with only the permissions the actual application required or actual user required. Okay, so this is the how the authentication workflow should be. There is a user or service account, and that will send API request to the cluster. And here the Kubernetes will authenticate, validates the authentication and authorization by using the certificate, token, OIDC. That means who are you. Then authorization will come into picture. Kubernetes will check the role and role binding. That means what you can do. Based upon this authorization, it will allow or deny. Okay, and the second area was pod and container security. Here we are never run a container as a root. That means obviously a root container gets compromised, that gives the attackers a root access to the host machine also. So always use a non-root user within the container, okay. And use a security context. That means define a run as user. That means if you see here, this is the insecure container and this is the secure container. If you see here, run as user, so this particular user is created and run with this user. And also one more security context was allow a privileged escalation. That should be false, okay. And if you allow, then each and every permission they have, okay. And also drop the unnecessary Linux capabilities. That means containers inherit the host capabilities by default, so make sure to drop all and add only what exactly required. And the pod security admission also, PSA we can say. So Kubernetes built-in policy engine was it enforces the baseline as well and Kubernetes by built-in policy engine, we need to make sure to enforce a baseline and restrict the profile across the namespace. And read only root file system. That means we need to make sure to prevent the attackers from writing the malicious files to the containers if it is compromised, okay. And the rule was very simple here. Least privilege for container, obviously that equals to running as a non-root user, read only file system, no extra capabilities. By default, deny all the extras and allow whatever required only. So that is the thing we need to follow in pod and container security. And the next area was network security and policies. So here in network layer, by default, all the pods can talk to all the pods. That means communication. A Kubernetes cluster is fully open by default. So each and every pod can route out to the each and every other pod within the same node. And this is very much a danger in the production environment. Here we need to enforce the network policies to restrict the traffic. That means we need to define exactly which pod can communicate to which other pods. We need to use the labels, selectors, and rules, and make sure to defaultly deny strategy, apply a default deny strategy. That means block all the traffic first, then explicitly allow only what the application or service requires. Let's say if a front end pod should not reach to the database directly, obviously backend pod should only reach to the database, right? So that we need to restrict. And also use the TLS for service communication. That means we need to make sure to encrypt the traffic between the services by using the mutual TLS, and service mesh like Istio can automate this particular service communication, okay, TLS service communication. And also control ingress and egress. That means we need to make sure to restrict what comes into what goes out from your cluster and what is coming to your cluster. So and that will prevent the data exfiltration and unauthorized access also. So the best practice with respect to the network security and policies was apply the default deny network policy to every namespace, and then explicitly allow only the connections that your application actually required. So this is the network policy how should be allow the connections front end to back end and back end to database, not from directly from front end to database or from external to database. So this is how exactly network security and policies should be enforced. And the next area was secrets and sensitive data protection, especially the secrets or config map. Okay, first thing we all know, never hardcode the credentials like passwords, tokens, keys into the source code and commit into the Git repository, and that will be shared across the team. Okay, obviously one leak that will leads to a full system compromise. Also, we need to make sure to use the Kubernetes secrets. That means we need to store a sensitive information with secrets YAML file, and that will be base encoded, and that will be available across the cluster based upon the role based access controls. And then it will be mountable securely to the associated pods. And then make sure to enable the encryption at rest also. So by default etcd will stores the secrets unencrypted, so make sure to enable the encryption to protect your data. If the disk was compromised, then your data is still protected. Okay, and also use the external secret stores, especially for production, integrate into some HashiCorp Vault or AWS Secret Manager, so that secrets are never stored within etcd database directly, and safely injecting from the external data stores. Okay, and also rotate the secrets regularly. That means changing the passwords and tokens on the scheduled Kubernetes secrets. That will makes the rotation easy, and update as well as restart the pod to apply the changes. Okay, and the simple or final conclusion about the security and sensitive data protection was, don't leave your passwords on a hard coded or sticky note. Okay, put it in a logged vault like secrets YAML file, and give only the right access to the right people by using role based access controls. So this is what exactly. Okay, obviously there should be a certain levels where level 0 we can say worst level. This is how exactly secret management, and whether is it good or bad practice. Okay, so hard coding is obviously bad practice, and storing the config map that should be in the plain text, but sensitive information is not suggested to store in the config map. And the good thing was the Kubernetes secret, and that will obviously stores by defaultly unencrypted, and make sure to encrypt that and use the external vaults. That is the good and best practice we can say. And then the next area was image and supply chain security. Here we will be seeing obviously scanning of images vulnerability part. So first thing was use a trusted base image only. That means we need to make sure to start from official images like Nginx Alpine, Python 1. Python Slim. Okay, and never use some random images from unknown authors or unknown Docker Hub registries. And also make sure to scan the images for vulnerabilities. So we can use the tools like Trivi, Snake, Gripe, and scan each and every image in your CI/CD pipeline before it goes to the production. And also make sure to keep the image up to date. That means old images have some old vulnerabilities, and rebuild the image regularly to get the latest patches as well as packages updated. And also make sure to sign and verify the images. We can use the cosign plus sign store to sign the images, and enforce that only signed images run in your production cluster. And also use a private registries, and that means pushing your images into your own registries like AWS GCR, ECR, GCR, Google Cloud. Okay, Azure Container Registry, and Docker Hub also. Okay, and also make sure to restrict the access to prevent the unauthorized image builds. Okay, and this is how exactly the pipeline rule. First we need to build the image, scan for the image, and cosign, that means digitally signed, and then push into the registry, and then deploy that final one only. Okay, and never deploy an image that hasn't passed through the vulnerability. So this is how exactly the flow. Okay, developer writes a code and we are going to build a Docker image, and then we are going to scan that also, that image also, and once it was passed through the scan, then only we are going to sign and then deploy the same into the cluster. Okay, now let us see a quick some best practices with respect to the security. Okay, Kubernetes security. First thing was list privileges anywhere. That means role-based access control with the minimum permissions and enforcing the non-root user within the containers and dropping all the Linux capabilities and no wildcard permissions. What exactly required, then only that will allow. By defaultly, make sure to deny all and keep the unencrypted data. Sorry, keep the everything updated. That means update your Kubernetes regularly, patch on node operating system, and rebuild the container images to get a latest security fixes and update the dependencies. Default deny the networking. That means apply a network policies that blocks all the traffic by default and explicitly allow what your application requires. And also make sure to use the transport layer security TLS certificate between the services. And scan image by using a CI/CD or like a Trivi for vulnerabilities, SNCC also, and Twistlog also for running containers. Okay, and then make sure to protect the secrets properly. That means enable a ATCD and encryption at rest, and use the external vaults, especially in production use cases, and monitor and audit also key thing where we need to make sure to enable your audit logging, and we can use some runtime threat detection tools and monitor the rollbacks and access control. Is there any changes is happening, and make sure to alert whenever the changes are critical, like security uh, changes are happening. Okay, and here is a quick overview of our discussion. We have discussed we need to make sure to enforce security at each and every layer, 5 layers of security, and make sure to enable a list privileges anywhere, and by default deny in especially networking, and digitally cosign and scan for vulnerabilities, and make sure to monitor at runtime. In the upcoming video, we will be seeing role-based access control, like how exactly the role and role binding configurations and access controls. We'll be deep diving into those concepts, and that's it for this particular video, and stay tuned for more videos. All the best for your learning. Thanks for watching.